Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Strink coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And I got an oldie and hopefully a goodie. This was the second one that was sent in by Burger Butt and Burger Butt. He sent in the ratatouille. This was the other menu in the box. So I have pulled up the chat on my tablet. This is packed by Sapaco. Hopefully you can see the first digit is a 0, so that means this is packed in 2020. Now see if this peelable seal works. A little bit of bag tear, but it worked. Now, Sapaco had followed AmeriQual in doing this double bagging. So it offered a little bit more protection, and it compacted the items in there a bit. So here is the entree. And underneath that, actually this may not be 2020 as the bag suggests. That first digit might have been a mess up. This has a late 2021 pack date. This one '22. White wheat snack bread. Regular peanut butter. Peppermints, aka Lifesavers, and you can see the circle shapes in there. Blackberry jam. Yep, accessory packet with no coffee. So there's the spoon. I'll fix that title later. protein fortified chocolate pudding. And this sleeve has nutritional stuff for both the entree and the chocolate pudding. Tropical Blend Smoothie. This is a new one on me. And the last thing out of this is a flameless ration heater bag. So this is a 2022 pack, not a 2020. Oh, I had the date code backwards. Here we go. That's why it looked a little weird. So I do apologize for that. I'll fix that later. So this is a 22, not a 2020. So I'm cheated out of a hot drink again. I'm going to make up the smoothie, but I will mix it in the bag. I did not add all of the recommended amount of water at once. Gives me a little bit more room to shake. Now I just put in more. And I'm going to leave this in the pouch. So in the meantime, I'm going to take this into the kitchen, and I'm going to go also find something out of my stash of stuff to put in my delicious mug. I got a Spanish cocoa. That is what that looks like. I just took the kettle back into the kitchen. It's actually been a while since I had a Spanish cocoa. Got Gray Man prepping in here. Haven't seen you in here in a while. Got spicy tuna rolls. The Carlos Perry is here. I've had this protein pudding once before. You can definitely taste the protein stuff that's in there. Prepper for the ages here. Has about the same consistency as the halal chocolate pudding. I'm going to call that good for that. Now this bread is actually square. It doesn't have that usual fake loaf shape. But yet it's called the white wheat snack bread. It is almost thick enough that if I brought in the right kind of knife, I could probably fillet this and open this up. Which is actually something I'm going to attempt to do. But I'm going to do it in my kitchen. That didn't quite work. But oh well. Now let's see what the smoothie looks like. This is a flavor I have not had before. I just added a tiny bit more water to the bag. In fact, I might throw just a little dribble in there. Kind of looks like carrot. Yep, it has carrot, it has pineapple, it has mango. Has orange. And then a few other things thrown in there. Got Stanton Shenanigans in here. Got Tim Riley here. Yeah, I tried to open up that wheat snack bread, but that didn't do very well. But I'm going to go ahead and get my entree, and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. This is what I use to carry my hot entrees from the kitchen. Drying it off with a paper towel. Well, that end didn't work so well. There we go. So some of these are just more like chunks instead of actual strips. But the sauce is definitely savory. It's not overly sweet, which is nice. Again, for those just coming in, I misread the date code on the bag. I had it flipped upside down. So it looked like a 0 was the first digit. So that's what made me think it was a 2020, but it is a 22. Yeah, when I was at the University of Central Arkansas, and when I went to some restaurants when I spent time in Arkansas back in the mid 80s, the cornbread was on the sweeter side in some places, but yet a couple times I've had it with cheese in it. Not a whole lot of cheese in there, but just enough to be noticed. yeah, it is going to be very difficult for a lot of SNAP users. My mom had been on SNAP for a while, but because she was getting so little, because some of the expenses that she would report were not counted as qualifying expenses. And because her rent is income based, but her rent is about to go up like to 525. So at one point she was getting maybe $10 on the SNAP card, so she just stopped it. She was not using SNAP when everybody was getting the maximum allowable benefits, irregardless of income and number of people in the household. She didn't apply for it until after that had already been cut back to the standard amount that people would normally qualify for. So she was not able to make use of that extra benefit to get better stocked up on food. But she got a little extra help earlier this month when my oldest sister and the adult children of her late father-in-law cleared out the house and divided up all of the food that was left. The non-perishable foods got distributed among several, including my oldest sister, who gave some of it to my mom and some of it to me, and I show you what I brought home. There are a few other things that were thrown in to that mix, but yeah, so my mom got a little extra this month, and my sisters have tried to give her a little bit of stuff. Yeah, some people put honey in the cornbread instead of the sugar, or sugar and honey mix. Yeah, this beef, I'm glad to see there's quite a bit of beef in here. There's really not much of anything else. Other than the tomato sauce and whatever seasonings are in it. Yep. I'm taking this bits of bread. I tried to open that wheat snack bread, but I don't cut bread very well. I thought maybe I would try opening it up to put the peanut butter and jelly on, but like I said, I don't cut bread very well, so that didn't work. So I think I'm just going to just break off pieces of this. And put it in the sauce. And these are just lifesavers. It doesn't have a tear notch, so I cut one. And one almost got sealed. Right there is where one was almost sealed inside of the packet. So there's 4, there's 6, got 10 of these. Yeah, some health insurance plans have an extra benefit. Unfortunately, I don't think my mom's does. And I don't think mine does. In fact, she does not have the quarterly spending allowance like mine has, which is a real crapper because she has made some changes into what she uses as far as her personal hygiene. So she pays out of pockets. One of my former clients used to call them adult diapers. You know, the Depends disposable underwear. But one of my former home care clients had a benefit on his where he could get his delivered free of charge. All he had to do was just call the company and tell them that he needed to order another supply of them, and then they would just ship them. But speaking of these quarterly spending allowance, another YouTuber put up a video about using up your flex spending allowance or health savings accounts or whatever type of spending allowance you have that can be used on medical supplies, certain supplements, over the counter medications, certain hygiene items. He basically put out a reminder that at the end of the year, all of those benefits that have not been used, they don't roll over to the next year. So if you don't use that benefit by the end of the year and you basically leave some of their money on the table, it's gone. Yeah, the channel is called Medical Gear Outfitters. It's run by the YouTuber Skinny Medic. And if you have those certain types of allowances that can be used on any site or any store where you can buy medical supplies, you can use that benefit on the Medical Gear Outfitters site. Of course, he was promoting that, but mainly promoting the fact that you have until the end of December to use that benefit up before you lose it. I was just looking at the chat. I've used up part of the allowance that I have so far, but I have a little bit left. I want to go ahead and use that up fairly soon, even though I got a couple more months. I might actually, because I got my main quarterly benefit this month, and then by doing certain activities, I can add additional rewards. So I got one thing that I can do in November and one thing that I can do in December. So I might actually wait till December to go ahead and use that up, because I think those extra rewards also do not roll over. I could be wrong. But because I have already used the base amount that I get every quarter, I don't have to worry about losing that. When I first started getting this benefit, I used to have to go through their system and either call in an order or I go through a website. But then 3 years ago, they opened it up where you can use it in stores, but not every plan has that flexibility. The YouTuber Disabled and Prepping has a similar benefit, but she cannot go to a Walgreens or CVS or even a Walmart to buy the item she wants. She has to go through their system, and then they ship everything to her, which is actually nice for her because she uses a power wheelchair, and when the weather gets nasty, she doesn't go out because she just can't drive a wheelchair in snow or on ice. She avoids going out if it's raining because not all wheelchairs have waterproof battery and motor compartments. But they change year to year what items may be eligible. They may add some things, they may take some things off of what they will cover. But nevertheless, every time I do these specific hauls when I use my benefit, I remind everybody to check their health insurance to see if they even offer anything like it. Gonna taste this smoothie. I can definitely taste the carrot. I don't taste the orange much. I can taste a bit of the pineapple and the mango, but the carrot is a strong presence there. Yeah. And especially, you know, even if you have a SNAP, what happens is if you do not use above a certain percentage or certain amount of your benefit in a given month or 2 months, may vary by state, that percentage or that amount could be cut out because they think that you're not needing all of that, but it's better to use it all. Now, if you leave $1 or less on the card, they won't cut you down because of that. But if you do not use any of it for like 2 or 3 months, they'll cut you off completely. Yeah, I've had conversations with used to be like just health department and human services used to be separate here in Iowa until last year they got combined into one. So it has the same structure on the state level that federal health and human services has. It was part of our governor's governmental restructuring efforts. She even had a state version of the Department of Government Efficiency, and they gave her their final recommendations, and I guess that group has now disbanded. So she may try to follow through on some of those, she may ignore some of them. We'll just have to see what happens when the legislature starts up again in January. Mike Krisher in the house. This is actually a 22 pack, not a 2020. I misread the date code. I had the bag like this, with the 0 being the first, but it's actually like this. So I will correct that later. But I'm pretty sure that this menu might still be gone. I don't have a case say 24, so I don't know what menu 7 is. Or if this beef strips has a different menu number in 24 run, so. But it has been a while since I've had this menu. I like that this sauce is actually savory, not overly sweet. Nope. She is going to follow a different path. So it is an open seat. Oh, wow. Yeah, I was not fully aware of the main reason. I know she said she was focusing on family stuff. But, yeah. That nasty cancer. That is definitely messing with him. Yep. It's good that menus like this stay in the mix. That Spanish cocoa mix is kind of like the French cocoa mix you get out of one of their rations. It's more of a darker chocolate. It's not super sweet. But I like the flavor of that. It had been a while since I had a Spanish cocoa. You get the rear roll, the matches, the cinnamon gum, tiny packet of salt, and a wet wipe. That is all you get in this accessory packet. No coffee. The ration packers need to put the coffee back into the accessory packets along with the other stuff. Yeah, if I was a soldier in the field on a chilly day, I would want that coffee. Even if I had the cold brew, I would still want that coffee. This entree would be good over rice. It would be good over mashed potatoes. Now, if the mashed potatoes are still in the menu lineups, that would be a good addition to this. The fork end of my spork got into that pudding. It's a dark chocolate, but you can't taste the protein component. It has a bit of a odd aftertaste because of it. But it's not so bad that I won't finish it off. No. I will definitely eat the rest of that. Oh, wow. I bet you weren't expecting to run into her. Yeah, my oldest sister's husband is going through his own cancer battle. Although he wants the treatment, but he does not want to do the one thing that would definitely help him out a lot, and that is quit smoking. Yeah, when my late dad got diagnosed with his cancer, he had been cutting back on smoking, but after his diagnosis, he just completely gave it up. He got rid of the last of the cigarettes that he had. Either he just threw them away or gave them to someone else. I don't remember what he did. But he had cancer in his brain as well as his lungs. But he was only around 1 month after his diagnosis, so it could have been festering for a while. But my oldest sister's husband has chosen not to quit. He figures, I guess, I'm just guessing here, that he probably figures, yeah, if he's going to die of cancer, he's just going to keep doing what he's been doing. Some days he's not feeling so hot and he doesn't want to leave home. Other days he's feeling okay. He made it to his dad's funeral. So I was happy about that. He was not one of the pallbearers. So one of the other guys took that spot. My nephew, his son, was one of the pallbearers in his place. But there's another guy who joined his brothers in moving the casket. Well, being that she is still the sitting governor, she probably gets that escort wherever she goes. I guess if it's just for personal things, like if she just wants to go grocery shopping, I don't know if she gets that escort just to go to a grocery store. Or how that works. Wow, I didn't know Newman's Own had coffee. Might have to look for that. And it's very cool that you were able to find coffee on clearance. I think it was in September. I got a Maxwell House coffee that was on clearance. It was the one in the cardboard container, not the plastic one. But I emptied that cardboard container into a plastic Folgers container. So anytime I buy coffee in bags, I empty those into a plastic container. But I have a $50 gift card that I was given Friday morning when I and some other people who had signed up to do this, we did photo shoots for DART, our regional, our bus system here in the Des Moines area. They wanted people to be quote unquote bus models. So we went to a vacant parking lot so we could do the photo shoot and not impede any existing bus routes. So we would be pretending like we're waiting for a bus, getting in and out of a bus, inside the bus as it's moving. Of course, this cute little baby was hamming it up. He was loving all the interaction he was getting. So they were using some props that either they had or people would bring themselves. For instance, like an extra bag that they would have like for carrying groceries, or a bag they would take to their job. I had a bag that had my travel mug full of coffee that I kept inside that bag. Then they used a bike. We have a bike room at the DART station that people who pay a fee to use it can store their bikes in there. So when they did those bike shots, they just got one of those bikes out of there, used it for those shots, and then put it back into the bike room. And they had people with wheelchairs and mobility scooters, walkers. The woman with a baby is severely visually impaired, so she had her cane, but she had this adorable little 11-month-old boy. He was just eating up the attention. But everybody who participated got a $50 preloaded gift card. It's a card that you can use anywhere. It's not a store-specific card. Like mine happens to be a MasterCard gift card, so I could use it in a grocery store. I could use it in Walmart. So what I plan on doing with that is buying extra food. I haven't decided if I'm going to load up on canned meats. I haven't decided where I'm going to go. I gotta drop off something to the mosque. Tomorrow I'll do that. I might just hit up the Hy-Vee that is around the corner from the mosque. That's on University 42nd Street here in Des Moines. that box of Amazon branded the Presto paper towels. I put one of those 6 packs in my little suitcase that I use as a grocery hauler. That just barely fits. So I'm going to go drop that off tomorrow. And because I would have that little grocery getter with me, I just might go ahead and use that gift card. That way I can have that to bring that stuff home. That's okay. You're still here. You're still catching it live. Again, I apologize for messing up the year in the title. I had the bag like this when I should have had it like that for checking out the date code. So this is a 22 pack. I'll fix that later after this stream ends. Thanks for dropping in, Carl. I hope to see you another time. Again, no coffee in the accessory packet. So I got a Spanish cocoa in my delicious mug. These are the lifesavers of peppermint rings. But I'm not going to eat any of these. These will get added to my stash of the hard candies that I like to store for long term. And I tried to fillet the wheat snack bread because I wanted to try to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with it, but I don't cut bread very well, so I messed it up. So I just ended up dipping it into my tomato sauce. So I will save these for another day. Blackberry jam. This is when you don't see a whole lot, so I will enjoy that another day. That's okay. Like I said, you're here. I'm still live. This protein pudding, you can definitely taste the protein powder that was put in here. But it's kind of a dark chocolate pudding. This cocoa mix is a dark chocolate, not overly sweet. But this protein pudding is not so funky that I wouldn't finish eating it. The pudding has 14 grams of protein in it. I figured someone might be curious as to how much was in there. It has the same consistency as the halal chocolate pudding and caffeinated chocolate pudding. The caffeinated chocolate pudding is a little bit more pleasant. Like I said, I mean, this is not too funky to finish, but you can definitely taste that protein stuff they put in here. Now this smoothie, the carrot dominates. It cuts through the fruit flavors. I cannot taste orange. That might be more for color because it's lower in the ingredients list than the other fruits, but there's pineapple, banana, and mango, as well as the orange, plus the carrot. But that carrot cuts through any sweetness the other fruit flavors would have in it, but it's actually not that bad. It's a little thin for a smoothie with the correct amount of water, but it's a little thick compared to your standard drink. But it's a definite change of pace from the protein shakes or any of those things. But that's actually not too bad. I would drink that again. Everything in this accessory packet will get stashed away like I do every time. I got bags for all of these items. The spoon will get added to my stash of plastic spoons. FRH gets saved. I hold on to all of those. Because I figure one of these days those things might come in handy. I might need to either heat something up with the FRH or use it as a body warmer. Because I have the beverage bags that I save. Some of them currently have other items stored in them, but I could always move those to larger Ziploc bags if I wanted. But if I wanted to, I could use the beverage bag to make an instant coffee or throw a tea bag in there with the water inside of the beverage bag and then put that in the FRH. Or I could travel with them. You know, the very first time that I spent a whole day volunteering doing the kids crafts for the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow, I had no idea what the food situation was for volunteers. So I took one of these and a retort pouch. I think I had some halal entree and one of these MRE bags. I set off the FRH with the retort pouch inside it. I put it inside of the MRE bag, and because it was already hot outside, the FRH bag literally fused to the MRE bag. But that's okay, it just made for easier trash disposal. I could still get the retort pouch out of this. And I think I had one of these. Either that or I took a metal spoon from my kitchen. I don't remember what I did for a spoon, but or I just had another plastic spoon. But yeah. So that's what I did. And that worked out. Of course, then I later found out that there was a volunteer and performer kitchen. But because I did not know about that, I really wasn't thinking about that. I just figured, I'm just going to take my own lunch. And so that's what I did. If it were easier for me to go camping by myself, I would probably use some of those. Either in place of using my camp stove or campfire, or in combination with. But because I don't drive, I just can't go out of the city anytime I want by myself. And I'm not paying an Uber or Lyft driver to take me way out somewhere. It costs a good chunk of change. So I only get to go camping when I get a ride with somebody. So I get a ride to Jester Park every September for the powwow, and because my driver is also the other craft person. That just makes it easy on both of us. And we both slept in a teepee, a different one than we've used previously because the other one got messed up by squirrel. Yeah, squirrel got into the storage container that particular teepee and maybe some others and other supplies and equipment were in, and messed that one up. So another guy who had a flag themed teepee set up, he let us sleep in that. So, because otherwise I would have had to bring my tent, and it is not a summer tent at all. It is made for cold weather camping. And there's no decent spot where I could have put up my hammock. Of course, then my partner didn't have any camping gear on her either because she currently lives out of state and she comes back every September just for the powwow. So she has some stuff stored with her sister. And then she rents a car every time she flies in to Des Moines. So she was able to get here Thursday. She took a bunch of stuff to the park Thursday. And then Friday afternoon she came and got me and all the stuff that I had prepared to bring. Some of the items I brought got used, some did not. I took my Opus 600 power station plus my Opus solar panel in case a fan would be needed in the area where all of the elders would sit. They had a designated canopy that the elders would sit under. But because the weather did not get so hot, that was not needed. And because there's already electricity hookups in some parts of the park, plus there are several generators running, my power station was not needed elsewhere, and I had one of my small ones inside the teepee that my partner and I used to charge phones. Plus I would charge one of my smaller power banks. Say I would charge this one off of my small power station I took. But at least if my Opus was needed for something, well, it's there if it's needed. Yeah, I have my solar panel so I could plug that in if necessary, but that was not needed. But, you know, it's better to have it not need it than need it not have it. Oh, yeah. Yep, there are too many stories about idiots trying to do stuff. Even inside the city that can happen. Yeah, that building that got burned up pretty bad. I think it was last month or early this month. Just a couple of properties down from my building apparently is vacant and homeless people were in there. And someone started a fire in there. I don't know, maybe they were drunk or looped on something. But yeah, the fire trucks are parked in front of my building. That's how many of them came out to deal with that. That's okay, Waffles. You're here. I'm still live. You're not catching replay. I ate everything I planned on eating, except for the peanut butter and the blackberry jam, because I messed up trying to cut that snack bread open. I just ended up dipping the pieces into my sauce. And these peppermint lifesavers and these are in fact lifesavers. These are going into long-term storage. Yeah, the sauce is actually savory. It's not one of those sweet sauces that you get with some of the other menus like the ravioli or the spaghetti or some of the others. But this fruit smoothie with carrot, the carrot flavor dominates, but I can pick up some of the other fruit. It's not bad. I would drink that again. The protein chocolate pudding, you can definitely taste that protein stuff they put in there. It gives you a bit of an aftertaste, but not so bad that it stops you from eating it. As I can tell, it's gone. But again, no coffee. So this is a Spanish cocoa. Like the pudding, it's a dark chocolate. This is not too sweet. So you can get the full flavor of the cocoa. I probably could have used a little bit less water, but I really didn't bother looking to see how much to put in it. It does not have as much powder as a lot of other cocoa mixes because there's not a whole lot of sugar in it. I just read 200 mils of water, which is less than a standard U.S. cup. So probably about maybe 6 ounces of water. I put a little bit more than that in there. Yeah, one place I used to live, probably almost 20 years ago, there used to be a lot of drug deals going on in that building in broad daylight. Fortunately, most of those happened when I was away. But by the time I moved out, it just got to be so much trouble. And the manager was really not doing a heck of a lot. And after I left, I ran into people who were still living there. I'd run into them riding the buses, and they would tell me what was going on, that it even got worse. And well, I left because I was afraid I was going to get evicted for reporting problems that the landlord is supposed to take care of. In fact, I got blamed for one of those problems that was caused by the idiot who lived above me. But yet that property manager wanted to put it all on me. But I pushed back. Yeah, the idiot above me let water run in a bathtub, and it messed up the drywall behind. I had tile behind, yeah, as my tub surround. I don't know what that person had who lived above me, but the drywall got messed up. The tiles were literally starting to come loose. And there was damage to the ceiling as well. And then where my heat pump was, my furnace, because I had a gas furnace, it was in my closet, and there was a pipe to allow the condensate to drain off to the outside. Well, there was a hole. The hole that pipe went through was not either tight fitting or was not thoroughly sealed, so water could get in through that hole around that pipe, and we had a really hard rain. So it collected in there, and it messed up my closet. It seeped under the floor where my dresser was, so it ruined that dresser. But yet that property manager wanted to blame me for that. Like, I can cause rain to leak in? I can cause a leak from above me? I guess they didn't like when I kept pushing back. and finally got their insurance to give me somewhat of a settlement. I spent a week in a hotel. They gave me half of that as a settlement. And one other time, I had come back from somewhere and someone had put coals from their grill into the dumpster without making sure they were thoroughly extinguished. So apparently they had done that the night before. And then I come home from wherever I was, and there's a big old fire coming out of the dumpster. And so I called 911, not really realizing that others had done the same thing, but I wasn't going to take any chances that no one had reported it. But that fire got so hot on either side of the garbage shed, which had brick, but the heat was so intense that it literally melted the paint off of vehicles that were parked on either side of it. And one was a 1943 Ford, a real classic, and the paint on that got messed up. So for about a couple months after that, no one would park right next to that garbage shed. CR's in the house. Alexis is here. Thanks for dropping in. Haven't seen Alexis before. Good to see you here. Yeah, this is the 2020 is an error. I misread the date code. But this is actually a 22 pack. But I continue to review, I reviewed the rations as I usually did. Even during Ramadan, I did reviews because I wasn't going to the mosque. We did not have iftar dinners in 2020. So in 21, we did that again. And it was only after that that we resumed the Friday, the lunches that we serve after the Friday prayer. But instead of just putting the pots on a table and people would just scoop out their own onto a plate, we started using the foam carryouts, the ones that are about this big that you usually get when you go to a restaurant and you don't finish all your food and you ask for a container to go, or you order a meal from a restaurant for delivery either through DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber Eats. You may get it in one of those foam carryouts. So we've been doing that ever since. So we go through a crap ton of those. Fewer people are actually staying to eat their lunches there. They're taking their food back to work or to school. If their class schedules don't allow them to go to the cafeteria during their normal times. And I've had that happen when I was in college. I would get my lunch when I was at University of Central Arkansas, we had this on-site little place called the Bear's Pit. It was basically like a mini fast food restaurant there on campus. So I would sometimes get my lunches there. And they would not only have food that you pay for, but if you're on one of the lunch programs or the meal programs, if you wanted to use one of your prepaid meals, they would give you a sack lunch. It'd be like a sandwich, maybe a bag of chips, maybe a soda or whatever. But you go to the Bear's Pit to get those instead of going to the dining hall to get it. But then when I attended at DMAC, one time I had my classes scheduled where I couldn't go anywhere for lunch, and because I was going to a different campus, I just took my lunch with me. And so I had enough time in between the two classes just to sit somewhere and eat my lunch. And then one of my classmates did the same thing. She and I shared the two classes, so we would eat our lunch together because she would bring hers too. You bust up, if you have that berry cobbler, you heat up that cobbler, you bust up the cookie, and then mix it into that cobbler. Or when I had the Chilean DAF rations, and you had that berries jam, that big cracker is more like a cookie. I bust those up, and I mix that with that berry jam. So that's how I would prefer to eat those, like that. I mean, the pizza combos. There's a Canadian IMP menu called Pizza Pasta. I'm very interested in giving that one a try to see how that goes. I have a cheese pizza MRE. That I haven't opened up yet. No, actually, I think I did. I might have opened that one up already. I don't know. I would have to look at my ration stash, but the pepperoni pizza I don't eat because it is pork based. It's pork pepperoni. Yeah, being a Muslim, I don't eat pork. But there are two different companies that make the MRE pizza, Sterling and Bridgeford. I think there's one reviewer who did a comparison between the two. I'm not sure if it was G. Schultz or Gundog. Who But one of the other reviewers who's been around longer did a comparison between the Sterling and the Bridgeford pepperoni pizzas. Yeah, what the crackers would do, especially in those tomato sauces that are super sweet, they will cut that sweetness down. I squirted if I had a cheese spread, I would squirt the cheese spread into that ravioli. Now it also cuts the sweetness down of that sauce. Yeah, the pizza slice, it looks exactly like what we used to get in school, like junior high, high school, or whatever it happens to be. Except the crust was not the same as the snack bed crust. But other than that, it looks exactly the same. But at least with the school lunch pizzas, you got it when it was fairly hot. And the cheese actually melted a bit. Yeah, he's got to deal with that, and of course I think Stella, or the one dog, has been having some health issues. Yeah, a lot of people are facing stuff like that. Earlier this month I went to my oldest sister's father-in-law's funeral. So that part of the family lost some guy who just loved life. He was generous with his time. He liked to give little gifts. And he used to love making brownies and giving them to people. And Michael Green over in England, he had to quit doing reviews because of his health. I haven't seen him put up any kind of a video in quite some time, so I have no idea what's up with him. And of course, a few years earlier, another Brit who used to do rations, his health took a turn for the worse. He started losing his sight. So there's not a whole lot of time after that that he passed away. And so someone had to take in his pet rabbit because he had a pet rabbit. He used to give the Polish and Lithuanian crackers to because that rabbit could eat them like nobody's business. Grayman Prepping, checking out. Thanks for dropping in. Hope things are going okay for you in Idaho. That's where he's at. Ooh, oh, Frenchy Sandy, that would definitely suck to have to deal with that. Yeah, I have run into a few people here who had traumatic brain injuries as a result of falls or being smacked with something. Yeah, it'll mess you up good. In fact, one of my sisters, I guess, fainted when she was taking a shower, and she fell and hit her head. So that messed up her short-term memory. But once she recovered from that, she continued to work. But she had to use driving directions just to get routes to places she would go often back into her head. And she still does that for the most part, because she never really did get all of the short-term memory back. Her long-term memory was never really affected, but the short-term memory is what got messed up somewhat. But this is the same sister who had the ankle surgery in 24 and then had to repeat it again this year because something was not healing right. So she's still doing therapy for that. And she's gone on permanent disability because the short-term disability ran out and she was not yet ready to go back to work. So she officially resigned from her job and went on permanent disability. Thanks for dropping in. Hope to see you next time. I do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central. I'm in Iowa. The only times I would not be streaming on a Sunday would be during Ramadan, when I will be at the mosque every night for the iftar dinner after we break our fast, and then we do a whole bunch of extra praying after that. And anytime I leave, and I will be away on a Sunday, or I come back on a Sunday, but it would be pretty late, like last month when I came back from the powwow, the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow that I volunteer at every year doing kids crafts. I got back fairly late. We took some time to pack things up, start breaking down some of the setups, and then I took time to get my stuff up here. I took for a weekend trip, I take a whole bunch of stuff. My clothes, but I took a bunch of craft supplies that I had not yet already handed off. I had a box of cans of fruit which never got opened up, and I still have to get that canned fruit back because it got mixed up with some other stuff. When asked about my canned fruit, they thought I meant my blueberry compote, which I had left over from the International Food Day we held at my mosque, so I froze it and took that to the powwow to serve in the volunteer kitchen. So only some of that got served. A couple of people took some of it, and then I brought home the rest. So they thought that I only meant that. But I said, well, the next meeting, if I get a ride in person, I would like to go ahead and take that box back, because that way I can have that fruit this winter. I may want to go ahead and start eating some of those cans since I've had them a fair amount of time. But I couldn't get a ride, so I jumped in that meeting on Zoom, and the person who was going to give me a ride got other stuff that had to come up first beforehand. But I took some, those 2 4-packs of Amazon branded disinfecting wipes. I took 6 of those containers to the mosque. I took the other with me to the powwow, so we had those to use there. And of course I took my power stations, my solar panel for my Opus, plus my sleeping gear. I use a cot with an air mattress, and I have a pump for that air mattress, plus a sleeping bag, which the first night I just laid on top of because it was just too warm. So Friday night, then Saturday night, I actually had to cover up with it because it was a little chilly, but that's my lightweight sleeping bag that's good for summer use anyway. So I basically used it as a blanket. Plus my camp pillow. And I have a folding camp chair. And we wanted to have some extra utensils because we had to separate some of the foods for those who are gluten intolerant. Yeah, I'll bring some utensils from home for that. And so that worked out. Thanks for dropping in, Waffles. Hope to see you next month. Yep. Tonight is the last Sunday night dinner for October. And next Sunday, the time change is kicking in. So we have to yank our clocks back an hour, at least here in the US and Canada. I don't know when they'll do it in other countries. There are some states in the US that are tired of doing it. They don't want to do it anymore. In fact, I'm tired of it. I wish Congress would do something and just stop these stupid time changes. They're useless. But there are a couple places here in the US that don't do it. Hawaii doesn't do it. I think Arizona doesn't do it. I think there's a part of Indiana they don't do it. And I think Alaska they don't do it. And of course the islands they don't do it. Although I'm not sure about Puerto Rico if they do the time change or not. I don't know if the U.S. Virgin Islands does it, but Guam, American Samoa. I don't think they do that because of their distance from the mainland. Yes, these lifesavers came in the ration. These were inside of this packet. As soon as I ripped it open, that peppermint smell just shot out of there. But I am not going to eat these. This is the type of candy that I put away for long-term storage. Like the Smarties that I got in those accessory packets from the MRE Star 24-hour ration I did earlier this month. Those go into long-term storage. Because of the way these types of candies are made, they don't melt very easily like, say, the Brock's candies, the Jolly Ranchers, like the Fruit Lifesavers, other than the Orange Lifesavers, which are made like this. I have some of those put aside in long-term storage. But the Tic Tacs, those little nerds, the Sweet Tarts. I have those little conversation hearts that you get in February. I have some of those stashed away. Those are the types of candies that I put away for long-term storage. So that's where these go. And this peanut butter and blackberry jam were originally going to go on that wheat snack bread, but I figured it's a thick one. I can try to cut it in half. Well, that was a fail. I botched that big time, so I ended up just dipping that into the sauce. So these will go into my stash and come out another day. Yeah, the sleeping bag, if you can unzip it all the way to open it up, especially this particular one that I have, I showed it in my camp setup video that is in my powwow playlist. I got that sleeping bag specifically for summertime use, and not always just to get in it, but just to lay on it. But my old Coleman sleeping bag that I've had since high school, I still have that thing. That would have been too heavy. So that's why I don't use that one at all in warm weather. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't get pumpkins. The oven in my stove doesn't work. Otherwise, it would be interesting to try what I have seen in some camp videos that are shot by people in other countries. They get a small pumpkin, they hollow it out, they put other stuff inside it, like uh, some kind of meat, some veggies, and some seasonings. Put the top on the pumpkin, then wrap that thing up in foil and put it right in the fire. And then after the fire dies down, they take it out, unwrap it, take the top of that pumpkin off, and they just eat right out of it like it's a bowl. But some people have roasted other squash seeds, like acorn squash seeds. I have no idea what those would be like. I've never tasted those roasted. But pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds are really good. Oh yeah, pumpkin and sweet potato are supposed to be very good for dogs. Yeah, there's another YouTuber I've watched. He would go camping with one or both of his dogs, and he would sometimes bring sweet potato and sometimes some pumpkin just for the dogs, and then mix that in with the rest of their food. And Laura from Hedgehog's Homestead, she makes homemade dog food for the 3 dogs, the dachshund and the 2 labs. So she puts, I think, sweet potato in it. And now that I think she got a couple of pumpkins, I think one of the pumpkins might have gone into one batch of her homemade dog food. Yeah, that would be a real cropper. Have to put a cage around your sunflowers, I guess. Or you get some wild bird food mixes, you're going to get sunflower seeds in some of those mixes. When I used to have birds, I would sometimes add unsalted sunflower seeds to their food as a bit of a treat. More so for the parakeet and lovebird that I had. For a short time, he only lived 6 months, but I had a European linnet and then a canary. They got sunflower seeds, but the zebra finches I had, I think the sunflower seeds were too big for them, so I never gave them any. But the other birds got sunflower seeds. Yeah, the sunflower, the kernel of the seed can be pretty small, depending on the size of the shell of the seed. I probably could have shelled those and given those to the finches, but I just never took the time to do that. A little bit of pulp down there. Just throw a little bit of water in there, swirl that in my drinking jar. I pretty much got all that out. Yeah, when I first got the parakeet, he was in a very small cage. So as soon as I could, I got a big cage for him. And then the small cage went for my first two zebra finches, and there was plenty of room for them. I had a little nest basket that they could sit in and actually laid eggs. And I would take those eggs out every once in a while. At that time I wasn't composting because I didn't have a place to do that. And I didn't know about composting eggs anyway. And then when I got the European linnet, I got about the same size cage as I did for the finches. It was just a different shape. And then that sat on top of the cage that I had for the parakeet. Then after he died, I got the lovebird and I put her in that cage that the parakeet was in. So she had plenty of room to move around. Of course, after the linnet died, I got the canary and put him in that cage that was on top of the big cage. And I'd gotten a second pair of zebra finches after the first two died. But the second pair, they were kind of aggressive towards each other. I got them from the same breeder. They were in the same flock. But yeah, they got aggressive towards each other, so. No, I never got any more finches after that. Of course, then the canary died. I never got a replacement for him. And I never got a replacement after the lovebird died. So when I moved out of that place, I left the cages and the bird food there for the next person to deal with. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't grow a sunflower here. My pink dandelion seeds that I planted in the spring, not a single flower. I got leaves, but no flowers. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to pull those out. I want to leave that root in there. And I want to see what happens in the spring to see if I will get any flower, because I want to see a pink dandelion. That's why I bought those seeds, because I want to see if they will actually grow in pretty much full shade. Now the sun hits the yard in the morning and part of the afternoon, and of course there are some areas that have no trees on it at all towards the west end. But yeah, that area gets sun, but my deck does not. I get a tiny bit in the morning and a tiny bit in the evening, but it's filtered sun. Of course, at this time of the year, with the sun being farther south, I get less. And some of the other ones, some of the other seeds that I planted, something would pop up and then it would just crap out. And I've had some stuff pop up that looked nothing like what it's supposed to be, so I have no idea what's in some of my containers. Yeah, I've never, I'm not even going to attempt a sunflower, even the dwarf ones. I definitely couldn't do any of those giants that get like 7, 8 feet tall. I still have my watermelon radishes in the ground and never pulled them up at the time that the packet said that they're supposed to be ready to pull up. Some of those plants didn't make it, but 3 are still, the ones that are in the center of that pot, I think they need full sun too. But at least I tried it. But it got up to 65 Fahrenheit today. That's probably about like 19 Celsius, I'm guessing. But it's been in the 50s for the high the past, at least for quite a few days the past week. In fact, last night before I went to bed, I had my tower fan off in my bedroom, but just my window cracked. I turned that fan on last night before I went to bed, and it's still on. I'll probably keep that on. You know, I'll turn it so it's aimed towards the bed. But I've noticed the past few days when I go out, I feel heat, and I think someone turned the heaters on in the stairwells. I go in there like, whoa, who turned that up so dang high? It's not on high, but it sure felt like it. I still have my windows cracked. I can't open them as wide as I would like because Pumpkin is a screen climber. Ooh, never heard of honeyberry. I bet once they'll start producing, there'll be something good. I would like to try some fruits, but I don't have the space for vining plants unless I try to go vertical. That one mystery seed I had, which turned out to be acorn squash, I was running that thing vertical and up over that one shelf that I have some of my containers on. But I only got one little squash that's about, ended up being about that big around. The rest they either just dropped off before they started to turn dark or even before the flower completely disappeared. But that one that managed to make it, then I brought that plant inside. I put it on top of my cabinets above my sink. And I had to get on my step stool to water it, and then it wasn't getting any bigger, so I just popped that little squash off, And I took that container with that vine outside, and I just took that vine, cut it up, and put it into the compost. And I did warm up that little squash. I cut it open. I basically got one bite of that acorn squash. It tasted good. I put a tiny bit of butter on it, but that little thing tasted good. Yeah, my heat, once I do turn it on here, I have it set to 64. That's all. In fact, I stopped running the AC like October 3rd or something like that is when I finally shut it off. And I cracked the windows. But this little USB powered fan I got sitting on top of a computer tower, a desktop computer tower. The computer itself does not boot up all the way, so it's only like half power. I basically use it as an oversized power bank for charging my phone and power banks, but it charges them very slow. But I got that little USB fan plugged into it. It's very quiet, you can hardly hear it. My ceiling fan got messed up after my apartment got flooded in the spring of last year. Three of the four light sockets still work, but I only have bulbs in two because I don't need one. You know, the other socket is aimed at the slider, and I really don't need one there. I think two running is enough for in here. If I want additional light for shooting a video, I do have a little desk lamp that's currently sitting behind my tablet stand. I can turn that on. Oh, I bet they would grow good here in Iowa. Yeah, there is a member of my mosque who has a couple of Granny Smith apple trees in her yard, and she also has a persimmon tree. But the one thing about persimmons, they can get crushed very easily. So the ones that I brought home, by the time I got it home, they're pretty smashed up. So I just threw that Ziploc bag in the freezer. So I have persimmons in the freezer, and when I take them out, I'm just basically going to pulverize the rest of it. Eat it like persimmon pudding. I do have seeds from various fruits. Like when I had fresh cherries, I saved some of those seeds. I think they were like black cherries. I have some of those seeds. I have some watermelon seeds that I've saved from some watermelons that I ate. And the one cantaloupe that someone had brought to the mosque that we ended up not using, I took that home. I cleaned up all the seeds from that. And then there was another melon that someone else was supposed to take, but she forgot it. And by the time I checked on it, it had gotten too soft and already gone bad, so that one had to go to the dumpster. I'm not sure what kind of a melon that was. That did not look like the other cantaloupe that I brought home. But I wish I would have been able to salvage that one. But when I get the dates that are not pitted, actually, if I bring those home, I clean up those seeds. And I've had some peaches and some nectarines. Yeah, I cleaned up those seeds. Yeah, I have those. I figure one day someone might be able to plant those. No, I wouldn't. It'd be just like it got pureed in a blender. I think milk would probably ruin the taste of the persimmon anyway. It would mask it too much. I would just eat the persimmon straight, nothing else added to it. One fruit that can grow here, it's just not as common, is pawpaws. They're hard to find here in Iowa, but I think some people are actually trying to grow them. I haven't had pawpaw in in several years. But that's a fruit that could stand to come back. Yeah, it's probably something about the lactic acid in the milk that might react to something in the persimmon. That's just my uneducated guess. But personally, I think the milk would overpower the persimmon taste. That's the main reason I wouldn't put milk on persimmons. I would just prefer to eat it straight up. Maybe what I could do, I can get an ice cube tray, put some, I thaw the persimmons back out, finish crushing it up, and then fill the ice cube tray with that persimmon pulp, and then refreeze it. And then got little persimmon treats. or I could add some other fruits and turn them into a smoothie. That would be another way to do it. But persimmons do grow well here in Iowa. So they can probably do well in similar locations and similar climates. Yeah, that's Iowa. Maybe Iowa's about the farthest north that they can grow, but right here in Des Moines, there is at least one persimmon tree that I know of. So I've gotten persimmons from her twice. A couple years ago, she had them, and now this year she had them. And of course, she brought her Granny Smith apples. So I scored, I think, like the last five that were left, but one of them got pretty banged up and it had bug holes in it, so I tossed that one. But the others I ate, and I saved the seeds out of them. So I have one of those little pill, pill pouch Ziploc bags that are just about as wide as like this area of my tray, maybe slightly smaller. I use those to put seeds in that I save, that I collect from whatever. My cilantro plant, I need to look at that and see if I got any seeds off of that. That one didn't do as well this year as it did 2 years ago. I didn't plant anything last year because of the flood that happened. I had to have my about 80% of my stuff that was in here out of here, so a lot of it went out onto the deck. Some went into my bathroom, filled my bathtub, and then some into my bedroom. So I couldn't take a shower, so I was doing sponge bathing at the sink until I could at least clear my bathtub. But 2 years ago, my cilantro did fairly decent, and I probably got about, I think, 20 seeds off of it. So I saved those seeds. My basil had gone bonkers, but this year my basil didn't do so well. I don't know if it's the location. I changed the location where I put it. So I think next year I'll put the basil where I had it 2 years ago. Let's see, tonight's low, I'm going to check. I think it's supposed to be in the 40s tonight. Low's supposed to be 47 Fahrenheit tonight. And I watered the pots that still had plants in them this afternoon. The ones that didn't have anything showing, I didn't bother. Yeah, very little residue left on the bottom. Let's see, I'm actually going to look at. I have this backup phone that I can use to pull up weather, but when I load the app, it takes a long time for it to load. Oh, temp went down to 55. Supposed to be 61 tomorrow. And then Tuesday, rain, and only in the 50s for a high. The last couple of chances of rain we were supposed to have really didn't amount to much. I was not able to capture any of that rainwater. Yeah, persimmons are kind of like a cross between in flavor between a peach and an apricot. And then pawpaws are kind of like inside is kind of like a pudding consistency. The color of it looks like, on the inside looks like mango. But it's really kind of hard to describe the flavor of the pawpaw. It is when they're just the right ripeness, they are a bit sweet. And of course, you got little seeds inside that you want to get rid of. But I would have to eat another pawpaw again because it's been several years since I had one. You could probably at least look up online to see what the inside of a pawpaw and the inside of a persimmon look like, as well as the outside. I do hope you get to try them. But pawpaws do have a bit of sweetness to them. They're not as tart as a persimmon. But I do hope you get to try either or both of those. You can't find them in stores because they're both such fragile fruits. Uh, they just do not store well at all. Even if they're picked before they're ripe, because they may not be. Who knows? Maybe they don't ripen after they're picked. I have no idea. But they are both extremely soft fruits that they crush very easily. I'm in 5B. Actually, kind of like the border between 5A and 5B. Depending on the chart you look at, that's kind of where Des Moines falls. But because I have near complete shade, I would probably consider my personal growth zone maybe slightly below that. And I'll get the heat of the summer, but it's not as intense as it would be if I had direct sun on my deck. The other building in this complex has the same setup, but the building is oriented different, so the one side that does have the decks faces west. I did look at one of those, but because of the limited amount of time I had to relocate, that one needed a whole lot more work before it was ready to be occupied. So this one came up and I took it. The previous place I lived had no personal outdoor space, but my bedroom window had a west-facing window, and it was a two-bedroom unit, but what I should have done is made the other room my bedroom, and what I used for my bedroom should have been my spare room, which I used as my home office and storage. Because the other room had a north-facing window and the west wall had no window. But unfortunately, I had to leave that place because of stuff going on. That place was governed by an HOA, and there are some issues going on with that. So I left and came over here. Well, that's okay. I'm about to close this one out anyway. Again, I will correct the title. I'll take that second zero out and put a 2 in there because I misread the date code on the bag. But this beef strips, yeah. If you can get a hold of this one, get it. It's nice to have an actual savory tomato sauce and not a super sweet one. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with me for this last October stream. So next month, so November 2nd, just remember you gotta yank your clocks back an hour in the US and Canada for those areas that do the stupid time change. But I will figure out what I'm going to do. Then I'll toss a post up, let you know what's going to be coming out onto my tray. I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching and catch you on the flip side.